All right, everyone. I appreciate you guys being here and being here on time. I know it's kind of weird to be having a meeting like this on a Sunday, but we're going to be doing this kind of as the norm as we go throughout this process, throughout the course of the next couple of months, and getting us prepared and just getting ready for this awesome trip that we have to share with you guys. Like I said before, if you were late coming in, there is a QR code that you see here on the screen, and there's also a link. And I put that link in the chat. So just make sure you do that at some point today, at some point during this meeting, because it is my way of making sure that everyone's here. And there are also just some follow-up questions and check-in points that I want to see where we are at individually with different people with passports and different things like that. Okay, so a couple things before we actually get started. We have a whole agenda that we're going to go through. So there are some really fun things that we're going to talk about and to get us prepared and plan to make this trip happen. But before we get there, I want to talk about things that are specifically probably on everyone's mind, and that is safety, and that's everything going on in the world today. To use the word of 2020, I think that would be unprecedented, and we're all living in unprecedented times. And, we are making every motion to move forward and look to the future, and obviously look at how we are still able to make this trip happen, and be able to offer everyone the experience here to enjoy the 11 days in the 5 different countries that we have planned for you. The partner that I use and that we are using is EF Educational Tours. I'm sure you guys have heard their names before, because back in like a year ago, we had the meeting to get you guys to sign up for this trip. So it's been a while since you've probably heard like their name or who they are. But a really important piece of information that I have to share with you guys is recently EF has earned the World Tourism and Travel Council's Safe Travel Stamp, which I feel is something that is really important for us and for the company that I chose to use to make this trip happen. Obviously people are not going in and out of different places in different countries right now, but as we make these plans and as we look forward, we really have a great organization, a great group of people. There are a lot of people that I work with that you guys don't know and haven't met, and they are really the people that I rely on personally to answer my questions and to get us to be able to make these trips happen. And it's not just us. There are so many other groups and other students elsewhere in Berkeley County, in West Virginia, and the United States that are looking forward and looking to the future here in 2021, and crossing our fingers and being as optimistic as we possibly can. And just to let you guys know too, there are plans set in motion. Okay, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes and a little bit that I'll kind of share with you guys today, kind of where EF is and where they are in looking at making these trips still possible for travel in 2021. And we'll talk about some of those things too here in just a second. But I just wanted to give you guys some insight here and some important information about just where EF kind of is globally speaking, and some of the preparation that they're making for us in moving forward. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that you guys can see here on the screen, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. It's not that it's not important, and it's not kind of important stuff for us to look at and talk about, but some of the things are kind of more at the forefront right now in looking at planning and preparation, and some of the other items are looking a little bit further down the line. With everything that you see listed here, like in a normal year, whatever that means nowadays, but looking at planning tours and making these trips happen, there are so many boxes that myself have to check off, but that also EF has to check off to make sure that we can make these trips possible and make it feasible for everyone to go on. Even now, kind of where we are in the world, we're looking at the preparation and planning that we need to make and that EF is making to make this possible. And the two items that really stick out the most to me personally are the first two, the global partnerships and also looking at travel preparation. Um, you might not know, EF is not an American-based company. They do have offices in Denver and in Boston, but their headquarters is actually in Lucerne, Switzerland, which really gives me a lot of promise and hope, honestly, because Switzerland's one of the places that we're going to on this trip. And we know that with the headquarters being there in Switzerland, no, we won't get to see it, which makes me sad. But with the headquarters being there, we know that they have people that are on the ground every single day that are working around the clock to look at those relationships and those partnerships that they have already built, and continuing to look at the plans that they have now and that they had previously and how we can adapt that and also change that to make this trip possible. So, those partnerships, it's not just me with EF, it's EF, honestly, really with the world and Europe specifically because of the global presence that EF has there, not only with different government agencies, with local agencies, transportation companies, so many other items that can go into that specific umbrella there to look at how they're working with people on the ground there, to look at how we can make this happen. And also with travel preparation, we have these meetings, several of them in order to prepare us, but there's also so much other information too that is from EF to myself and also the world to EF about looking specifically at COVID-19 guidelines and how those are going to be things that we will talk about and share as we go throughout the course of these meetings leading up to the trip, in order to make sure that we're safe, and we can make this possible in a safe and plausible manner for everyone. And like I said before, there are so many other items that you see here on this screen, and I'm going to send this PowerPoint out after we are done with the meeting. So if you weren't able to kind of skim through and look at some of the items that you see here, they're all important. They're all kind of vital into making this happen for us, especially looking at the on-tour experience, when we are there on the ground, and looking at the different guidelines and really looking at a day-by-day changing process in different cities or countries that we will be in order to look at what their expectations are. And of course, that will be something that I will be very upfront with you as we go throughout this process and looking at how we can prepare and plan in order to not only meet my guidelines, American guidelines, EF guidelines, but also the different countries and different places that we will be in. And the last little thing here before I go through the agenda, just kind of hitting on some of the things that might be on the forefront of your all's mind, are the things that are already kind of built into what EF is doing and what EF is offering with their protection plans and their policies. The Global Travel Protection Plan that you all have as part of your insurance built into the cost of the tour, a lot of that is looking up to like pre-departure and actually things going on during the trip. If there are lost, damaged items, different discrepancies about, changing planes, if we get stuck in a specific airport and we have to adapt, like obviously we're not paying for those things to happen and we have that built into where we're taken care of. But more specifically, the item here at the top, the COVID-19 peace of mind. You guys can see a QR code that's there on the bottom right-hand side. That does take you to a link that looks at their specific policies and their items regarding COVID-19 and, where we are now in looking at how they're adapting and they're changing. And, as we go throughout the next couple months, we literally have to take it day by day, which is why we're having this first meeting now in November, because there are a lot of important things that we need to do now, especially when it comes to passports, in order to prepare and plan for that, still moving forward with this trip happening, okay? As I said before with this QR, it takes you directly to looking at some of these policies. And as specifically, if you were to scroll down and look at the COVID-19 peace of mind, looking at when we're 110 days to 45 days out to departure, that's really going to be really the most significant time frame there. So, March March and April to kind of look at where we are as a country and as a group, but also where different our other places of travel that we will be traveling to, and looking at what EF's expectations and guidelines and what American guidelines are through there, and how we can adapt and change to where everyone is still moving in a safe motion, or if it is unsafe, different policies and different ways that we can postpone and push back in order to make that happen. Okay, but just know that EF is going to support us in everything that we need to do, and that also I am going to support every single one of you here, and to make sure and to ease your mind about this being a safe experience for everyone. Okay, so as we move forward, that's just kind of the introductory stuff there that I wanted to share with you, and some of the different updates on EF side. For us, these are all of the items that we are going to cover in today's meeting. Over here in the bottom right-hand side, again, just the QR code to please make sure that you sign in at some point during this meeting. And also just so I have your name, who is here, the correct email address if I have a wrong email, and also just some questions leading up to some of the check-ins as to where we're at, okay? So there are a lot of items here. Some we'll spend a little bit longer on, some will be a little bit shorter, just depending upon where we're at. But we will introduce, I am going to introduce our chaperones to you first, go through who those individuals are going to be. Then we will review our itinerary, talk about specific deadlines and a checklist that I have sent out a lot to you, and just kind of reference that again. I'll mention the Global Citizen Scholarship Fund, which I've also sent via email a couple times to everyone who is planning to go on this trip, and how that could be something to offset your balance moving forward. Passports, probably the most important item of today's meeting, which is why I've put it in the center. Then we'll talk about how to kind of look at preparation for monies, debit cards, credit cards, getting cash, stuff like that, and also cell phone use. I'll talk about tips and what that tip number is and what that references for what we will collect, what I will collect, and what that will go towards for people on tour. We'll talk about special travel requests, if anyone has any of those. The donation page, the holidays are slowly, maybe quickly approaching us right now, so how we can utilize that in order to use kind of as a last little push for grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever, to throw some money your way to help offset the balance of the trip. So let's go through our chaperones first, and then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty of everything that we need to do to look forward for this trip. So obviously there is myself. If you don't know me, I am Mr. Linger. I am the group leader for this trip. I have a great team of people that I have asked to help me in this endeavor. We have a lot of people that are traveling on this trip, which means I need a lot of eyes and ears. And so the people that you see here on this screen, I trust all of them. I've traveled with some of them before. I'm looking forward to traveling with some of them in the future. And the group that we have is going to be a really awesome group. And everyone's name who's on my roster, I know in some capacity, whether I've had you for the past 3 years or just a year and a half, or I know of you from a different teacher. Like, I am so stoked to have every single one here to go on this trip with me, and also with teachers from Spring Mills and other places too, because it's a different way for you guys to see us, and it's a different way for us to see you as a student and as adult traveler too, when you get pushed out of your comfort zone and just in a completely different space and a different scenario. We have Miss Unger. She has traveled as a chaperone for me and also other trips through Spring Mill, so I'm really excited to have her joining along again. I have Mr. Grog, my neighbor at Spring Mills High School. I'm excited to have him. He's always a sense of comic relief every now and again, so it'll be good to have him along as well. Mr. Barner, a French teacher who will be able to help us out a lot when we're in the French Riviera, and when ordering some macarons and croissants and other items that we want to eat and just see and experience when we are in France. I have Mrs. Riffle. She is someone that is a very good friend of mine and obviously a former teacher, and I'm excited that she is still able to join us on this experience and to have this connection really with some of the students that I'm sure she misses, and I've heard that she misses a lot of you guys too. I have Mrs. Horner. She is joining us as a chaperone as well. I'm excited for her to join us on this first trip. She's super excited too, to have some of the students that she knows and that she helped help sign up, and that people that she's had in her class. So I'm excited to have her. I have Mrs. Jorgensen. She traveled with us to Greece last year in 2019. I'm really excited to have her too, especially when we were in Greece. She had like so much random Greek mythology knowledge, which was really awesome. So I might task her in a couple things to looking at just different stories or crypts and tales of some of the areas that we will be in the Alps and the Mediterranean coast. I have Miss Lemons. She is a very dear friend of mine and also an educator. She is a library media specialist at Martinsburg High School. She will be joining us as well. She's a group leader too. So she has previous experience of organizing these trips and going on these trips with EF. And she knows how things go. And so I'm really excited to have her along with us. I have Miss Gletner, the social studies teacher, one of the new social studies teachers in our hallway. I'm excited to have her travel with us for the first time as well. You know, history buffs, no offense to my English or science or other people, but my history buffs, I love them because we know a lot of random stuff about a lot of the places that we're going to go. And finally, I also have Mr. Donato. He is going to be joining us as well as our final chaperone, and I'm really excited to have him join us too for this first trip of his with EF Tours. So here is our itinerary, very watered down, I would say. You know, I tried to give you the 11 days from day 1 when we leave to day 11 when we start to return, and kind of how it's going to play out in the different countries and the different areas that we're going to be in. You know, there's so much more that's not on this screen right now, because if there were, I'd have like 10 other slides of some of the other stuff that we're going to see and experience. But as you guys can see here, I'm just going to kind of walk it through real quick with you guys, because it's been a while probably since you looked at kind of where we're going and those different experiences and those excursions. And just again here at the top, I just want to remind you that our requested travel dates are June 21st to July 1st of 2021. We will know roughly 3 to 4 months out if those requested dates are secure. You know, I've had pretty good experiences with EF of the dates that I choose are typically the ones they give me. But if just to kind of dust off the brain in your guys' minds, when we met, you know, over a year ago, we do have that travel window kind of a couple days before June 21st. We could possibly leave, or, you know, if we leave a little bit later, it could be a little bit after July 1st that we could possibly return. Okay, but just know about 3 to 4 months, we will know the specific dates. And since we are such a large group, I would assume that we would know those dates a little bit earlier rather than later. Okay, day 1, we fly overnight. We will leave from one of the DC metro area airports. I typically choose Dulles because that is the one that I am the most comfortable with. But we could possibly fly out of Reagan or BWI. After we leave DC, we will fly overnight and go to Zurich, where we meet our tour director. If you traveled with me to Greece, you guys know our tour director picks us up at the airport, and he or she is with us from that moment until we leave on day 11. And, you know, this person is really the unsung hero. I feel like these tour directors of these trips, because they make it happen on the ground when we're on tour. And I have to say, when we were in Greece last year, our tour director was the most awesome person that I could have ever asked for, to be that go-to and so knowledgeable about everything that we were seeing and experiencing and just being able to do when we were in Greece. So again, I have the bar set really high for those tour directors. And that person will be with us and will be my point of contact too, as soon as we land until the day that we leave. And again, that is, you know, a part of EF's commitment to looking at safety, because that person on the ground knows where to go and knows where to not go and take students and adults. Okay, day 3, we will take a walking tour of Lucerne, Switzerland, and we have 2 different excursions scheduled for that day. The Swiss Alps experience is one that I included into the overall itinerary, so everyone is enrolled specifically in that excursion. And we also have the Swiss fondue evening. If either of the experiences that has a specific number. If you haven't enrolled in those, you don't have to. Those are just optional. And if you choose to not enroll in those optional experiences, we will be in places where there will be so much stuff to do. If you choose not to do the Swiss fondue or the Barcelona flamenco, because they're in the areas that these excursions will be in. Just a lot of other things for us to experience while some of those groups and some of those travelers that chose to want to do that will be experiencing that. Okay, and like I said before, if you want to enroll in those, you still can. You just have to call EF and say, hey, I want to add the Swiss fondue or the Barcelona flamenco to my specific itinerary. And if you have a question about that, you can hold on at the end and I can kind of help you a little bit about that. Day 4, we will leave Switzerland and head to northern Italy. So we will go through Lake Como and eventually end up in Cinque Terre. Back in 2018, it was like the most Instagram place in the world because people like figured out where it was at and the beauty and the culture and the food and just the overall environment of that specific area. So we will be experiencing Cinque Terre by train on day 5. So really being able to go through all 5 different kind of regions or villages, I guess I should say, of Cinque Terre, and to see kind of how some of them are similar historically and culturally, but also different in a lot of other qualities as well. Day 6, we'll leave Cinque Terre and head for France. When we're in France, there are a lot of cities, as you can see here, between day 6 and 8, and villages and small towns that we will get to experience and see. Nice, Provence, Avignon, Nimes, a lot of different historical areas that are there too, specifically the Pont de Garde in Nimes, as well as the Papal Palace, which I do mention in my world history class, kind of looking at whenever the Great Schism happened in Europe during 1054. Also here on day 6, whenever we are leaving Cinque Terre for Nice, we'll also get to visit Monaco, which is its own country. So we will be able to take a walking tour there as kind of in the middle of the day as we leave Italy to go to Nice, France. And just kind of a really cool area to look at and to be in because Monaco is a small principality that's very wealthy. And there are a lot of celebrities that live in Monaco, both, musicians and also actors and actresses. So you never know. You might be able to see a celebrity whenever we're in Monaco. We'll head to Provence and Avignon on day 7, and probably, I would assume, stop in some of the other smaller entities and smaller villages that are outside of Provence and Avignon. Nimes, France on day 8, again, where I mentioned the Pont de Garde and the Papal Palace. And then eventually we'll leave France and head to our 5th and final country, which will be Spain. And, day 9 and day 10 will be primarily focused on Barcelona. And Barcelona is a really, really cool city. We get a different vibe, I would say, from, day 1 through day 5. And then day 6 through day 10 is a totally different experience, I feel like. Kind of looking at that Mediterranean culture and their perspective and their kind of outlook on life. I'm very excited to kind of see the contrast and the difference between, Switzerland, the Alps, and kind of that culture there. And then just see something completely different whenever we're in Barcelona and also the French Riviera. And then on our last full day, we'll take a guided tour of Barcelona with a local guide. We'll also go to Park Güell. I was there in 2018. It's a pretty cool place to see and to kind of take in with the different art and architecture and also history that lives specifically in that park. And then we have the 2 other excursions that are there, the Barcelona by bike, which was included in everyone's itinerary, and then the Barcelona flamenco evening, which 20 people are enrolled. And then day 11, we leave back for the United States. With deadlines and the checklist, I have sent this out numerous times, and you guys can see this here on the screen. I'll send it out again at the conclusion of this meeting. But I sent this out, in August and September to really kind of get us thinking and kind of looking at how we're mapping out where we need to be and what we need to do specifically to make this trip happen. Like I said before, there are a lot of individuals and travelers that are on this specific trip. So looking at planning and preparation this checklist here is not only important for you to kind of making sure that you are where you need to be, but also for me, right? In order to organize all of this with myself and with my chaperones and looking at kind of the to-dos and the deadlines and dates that we have coming forward. Some of the more specific areas that we need to look at between now and our next meeting, by November 15th, so that's actually next Sunday, the global scholarship application is due. I sent a couple emails about that. I'm going to hit on it real quick here in just a second. But it's a really cool way, an easy way for student travelers to possibly earn a $1,000 scholarship to help offset the balance, the remaining balance that they have on tour. And I'll go over that here in just a little bit. By January 18th of 2021, if there are individuals with any special travel requests, and I'll kind of talk about what that means and what that references, but that date is important to be sent to me and also to EF by looking at if you need to arrive from a different gate or fly from a different airport or leave late or you're staying late, whatever it might be. And then February 7th is our next required pre-departure meeting. So we have this first one in November to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit and to just see where everyone is at. And then we come back after, December, January, very busy months for everyone, and come back by February 7th to have our second meeting. And also here, if you have any medical or dietary needs or restrictions, whatever it might be, the list could be long about what I could list off as an example of a medical or dietary need or restriction. Just send those to me via email, okay? And you can do it at the conclusion of this meeting. You can do it right now if you have your email popped up on your phone or on your device. But just kind of let me know if there are any issues you think about medical wise or different items that you might need, or also dietary restrictions, pescatarian, vegan, any allergies. That's really important to let me know about any food allergies, so that way I can have that. And also just let EF know when it comes to looking at the different meals that will be prepared. Okay. And then after our next meeting, some important dates. By March 1st, the passport information, everyone's passport information is supposed to be uploaded onto your EF account, which I'll talk about here in a little bit too, and also just updating your emergency contact info on your EF account as well. And then finally, by March 3rd of 2021, if you are a traveler on the manual payment plan, because of the stipulations whenever you enrolled, that manual payment plan does expect by that deadline to have your balance at zero. If you need to change or switch plans from manual to the automatic, you can do so. If that date cannot or does not work for you, trying to reach that balance if you're on the manual plan. Most of us are on the automatic, so you've been having payments come out every single month or every 2 weeks. So that'll go basically all the way up until June, until the month that we depart. But if you're on the manual payment plan, just know that the balance is expected to be zero by March 3rd. And like I said before, if that does not work, or you need to change plans or switch plans, you can definitely let me know, but it is your responsibility to call EF and make that switch for you, okay? The Global Citizen Scholarship, as I mentioned before, is going to be a really great, awesome for our student travelers to possibly win $1,000 in scholarship money to offset the balance of your trip. A lot of people, in my honest opinion, might not be doing this right now just because they don't know where, they're going to be come May, June, July of 2021. So I feel like there are going to be a lot less individuals that are actually going through this application process. And I would love it if 1 or 2 or 15 or everyone, if you went through this process to create a video answering the prompt that you see there on the screen, could go through and, help win some money and help win some scholarship money, so that way you or your parents do not have to pay anything else for your specific trip. Like I said before, the deadline is next Sunday, November 15th. I know it's a quick turnaround, but I have sent a couple emails about it to the email that I have on file. What do you need to do to make this happen? There's a hyperlink here that's eftours.com/global-citizen. I'm also going to send that in the follow-up email, but it takes you to a site that looks like this as my page refreshes. And again, it just kind of has some of the stipulations and the kind of expectations as to what the scholarship is, when the deadline is, and then also, for our specific tour, the winner will be announced by November 30th of this year. So, if you apply by next Sunday, they'll take about 2 weeks to go through those different submissions, and then they will have winners announced by that specific date. Okay. So again, like I said, this is hyperlinked. It'll take you to that specific site. There is the application that's on there that you have to fill out. And all you have to do besides the application is create a 2 to 3 minute video answering the prompt, how will this tour change the way you think or feel about the world or act within it? And you can be as silly as you want. You could be as creative as you want. Lots of different avenues, and I know a lot of you, lots of different ways that you could look at answering this question in order to make it happen and make it possible for you. You submit that, and then it's off to EF, and we cross our fingers in order to see if you are one of the winners. I know the rubrics here are kind of difficult to see, but they are also on the site, the link for this specific scholarship. And again, it looks at 4 main areas: the passion, perspective, purpose, and impact of your response, answering that specific prompt and answering that question. And then they give you, or will give you, an overall kind of total looking specifically at that, at your response, and using their rubric in order to determine the individuals that will receive the scholarships. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, you can drop that in the chat or hang out afterwards, and I can kind of walk through some of the motions of that too to help you out. Okay, passports. This is the most important thing, especially with where we are with items, kind of where we are in the world right now, kind of in the United States, looking at things being open or staggered opening and things like that. If you have not started your passport application, you need to do that like yesterday, because with the government, and with it kind of looking at different staggered openings and the passport process, the wait time is definitely a lot longer than it is in a normal sense, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But please, if you have not started this process, you need to do so as soon as humanly possible, so that way we can get it in by that specific date. Obviously, if you tell me and show EF that you've sent everything tomorrow, November 9th, and come March 1st or March 3rd that you don't have it back yet, obviously, EF is going to be working with you on that. But if you don't start the passport process until January 1st, then they're not going to be as lenient for that. Okay, so just please make sure that you do so as possible. Your passport also needs to be valid for 6 months after you return from tour. So we are supposed to come back July 1, 2021. So check your passports, make sure if you need to renew them that you do, but the expiration date should be after January 2022. It's one of those weird things, where our country kind of looks at the expectation of the validity of it, and even though it's 6 months, that's a huge time in order for it to still remain valid and be valid. But also some other countries just have that norm and that expectation too. Okay, so just make sure that if you need to renew your passport, if it does expire before January 1, 2022, that you do so in order to kind of meet this criteria. Okay, and then probably the most important thing on this slide too is the naming on your passports. Please make sure that the first, middle, and last name on your passport matches your EF account. If it does not, you will get hit with a fee, because they will probably have a problem ordering your plane ticket and securing your plane ticket if the name does not match your passport on your account. Okay, so please make sure if you already have your passport that you look at your EF account and make sure that the first, middle, and last names match. Okay, you guys can see the fees that are down here at the bottom. Any individual over the age of 16, and if you're a first-time applicant, the application fee is $110 with a $35 execution fee. That's not including the photo, your passport photos that you have to take. Those passport photos can be taken at Walgreens, CVS. I have some other information on the next slide too that can kind of help you out with that. But just know that the first-time applicant for an individual over the age of 16 is $110 plus the $35 execution fee. You can see if you're over the age of 16 and you need it renewed, it's only the $110. And then any individual under the age of 16 the application fee is $80 and the execution fee still stays the same. Now on this slide, this is some of kind of the tips and tricks that I have for kind of getting your passport. And I looked this morning just to like double and triple and quadruple check about the processing time. The processing time is anywhere between 10 to 12 weeks right now for new applicants for the passport. That is a lot longer than usual. So please, like I said before, this is the most urgent thing that you need to worry about and take care of right now. If you feel the need to get it expedited, they are offering, the US government is offering a 4 to 6 week expedited service for an extra $60. You know, I would say if you turn it in and you send it off tomorrow, you will need to worry about that expedited service, okay? But if you forget or whatever the, whatever it might be, if you wait till December, even definitely January, it's going to be a little bit of a tricky of a turnaround there to get that passport in time, okay? Like I mentioned before, passport information must be submitted by March 1st on your EF account. There is a link right here. It is hyperlinked to make sure if you already have your passport, you can take care of that and be done with that right now. And also make sure that the names are correct both on the passport or matches on the passport to your account. Okay, two of the most important pieces of information here too, kind of about if you haven't gotten your passport yet, at the Williamsport Post Office on Saturday, November 14th, they are actually having a passport fair that you do not have to have an appointment. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I will obviously send that out as a reminder in the follow-up email, but if you haven't gotten your passport started, they, I believe, are able to take care of everything there, even the photo. Okay, because most post offices can organize and go through the application process with that and also with the photo. But right now, most post offices are by appointment only. Okay, so just kind of think about that if you need to go to a post office for whatever reason to do that. But the application itself lives right here on the travel.state.gov site. Okay, so if you go to that site at some point after this meeting, if you haven't done it yet, it'll have every single piece of information, the PDF for the application, the spot for your photo, for the passport, you know, the 2 areas of certification that you need for that, for validation. And then also the Martinsburg Public Library. They also take care of passport applications as well. They are by appointment only, okay? So I have a hyperlink that here too that takes you directly to their specific site. But the Martinsburg Public Library does offer that as well. And then this last hyperlink here too, it goes into the most recent and most updated kind of where passport operations are at currently for the US government in response to COVID. Okay, so right now, like I said, the current processing time is 10 to 12 weeks. That's a big chunk of time. So I cannot stress enough the importance here of getting this started now if you've not done that. Okay. Money and cell phones, 2 things here really quick as well to go through. You know, some things just to think about, nothing that you need to worry about right now. But on the money side, the best way to spend money, unfortunately, is kind of looking at a debit card or a credit card. And for us and for our purposes, to look at having those cards with a chip as well. Okay, I feel like that's the norm nowadays anyway. But even in Europe, when I was there last summer, you know, most places had the chip reader and really only accepted the chip reader. So if you're looking at yourself or your students, whether you're going to give them your debit card, your credit card, if you're going to open up a sub account for them to access money and so that you can have money to put into, which would probably be a good idea. Just make sure whatever avenue that you go down there, that it does have a chip for a chip reader. Okay. You can also look at remotely reloadable prepaid cards, like the vanilla gift cards or Visa cards or whatever those might be. Most of those have a chip as well. And again, those can be, money can be added to those remotely, you know, from home if someone decides to spend all of their money on day 2. But really, again, that's the importance of a debit card as well. If your debit card is specifically tied to your own account, or you know, a parent or guardian has kind of access to that, they can add extra money as time goes on if your student gets a little frivolous in their spending while abroad. Okay, cash, we'll actually be using two different types of currency. While abroad, we will be using the euro for Italy, Monaco, France, and Spain, and then the Swiss francs for Switzerland that will be in for the first couple of days. Most banks, I know I use BB&T. I am able to order euros and Swiss francs in advance. Also, that's how I go about taking your tip money as well and getting that in the local currency for our tour director, bus drivers, and so on. I would assume probably right now it would be a little bit longer of a wait to get some of those monies in if you want to order. But like I said, this isn't necessarily something you need to worry about right now. I do suggest having some cash on you for most of the trip, okay? Just because some of the areas that we might be in, whether it's a smaller village, okay, kind of transitioning from one place to another, might not have a debit or a credit card reader, or like a small venue if you're getting a bite to eat for lunch, right? When we have some free time during lunch, if we might be in kind of a plaza in some of the cities that we might be. The carts might only accept cash, okay? So just kind of keep that in the back of your brain. Obviously, ATMs are going to be everywhere and readily accessible, and that is something that we really talk about a lot when we're on the trip too, to remind, hey, here's an ATM if you need to go to it, especially with our tour director. They know where those will be and kind of know, hey, like this, you might need some cash for day 5 for a specific reason. Okay, so just kind of think about that as we go through that. Okay, some cards obviously have different international fees. There are some cards that don't. Just kind of if you're looking at opening a different card for yourself or for your student traveler, just kind of pay attention to some of those fees, and also just think about, you know, when I swipe my BB&T card abroad, there's a 3% fee or something like that that is obviously added to every transaction. That's the most important part, every transaction. So just kind of think about that when you're planning and prepping for setting money aside for yourself or for your student, because most swipes or most inserts, I guess, with the chip would most likely have an international fee tied along with that, as would ATM. When you take money out of the ATM, there would be a surcharge there as well. American Express, though taken a lot of places and accepted a lot of places, it just would really be depending upon where we might be. In some places in Europe that do not take American Express, so I would advise not using that specific card or any traveler's checks, because that would be just a little bit more difficult to maneuver and work around instead of some of the other areas. On the opposite side of that, with cell phones, you know, our little pocket computer that we take everywhere with us. Again, not right now, but things to be thinking about. Check with your provider, see what plans they have for international coverage and carriers when you are abroad. You know, some of you might want to have your phone tied and tethered to any cellular tower that you want so you can have direct access. Others, you know, might not want to pay for that. So just kind of think about that and how you want to plan and prepare to use your cell phone abroad. Our hotels will have Wi-Fi, so obviously you can connect to that Wi-Fi in order to check in with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, or whoever, and also, you know, post your Snapchats and your Instagrams and your Facebooks and all that fun stuff, so you can do that too. But if you do not get a carrier abroad or purchase a plan for coverage abroad, you know, airplane mode obviously is going to be your best friend. So that way it doesn't automatically start pinging and looking at different towers in order to get cell signal and service from. Okay. Last thing here on cell phones, we are going to use WhatsApp. It is a messaging service that we use that is Wi-Fi based. And can be used with cell signal as well. But I used it for Greece. I use it for all of, honestly, my international travel. So you don't have to download that right now on your devices. And obviously, I'm not expecting you to purchase an international coverage plan. But with WhatsApp and with that Wi-Fi based service, we will be using that to kind of keep in contact via my chaperones and also everyone for reminders of times to meet, check, bed checks, wake-up calls, different things like that. And there are other Wi-Fi-based messaging services that you could use as a traveler to connect with someone back home. But just for my purposes, we will be using WhatsApp. tips. If you've traveled with me before, you know what these where these monies go towards. You know, the tour director, the bus driver, and the local guides. These are the people that make sure we are getting to where we need to be safely and securely, and they are the people that are on the ground that make it work for us, so that we don't have to worry about anything at all except waking up, getting to where we need to be on the bus to take us to our different attractions and events for that day. Okay, so the tip money goes towards 3 different categories of people. Our tour director, who gets the most amount because they are with us 24/7 after we land. The bus drivers, I would assume that we might have 1 or 2 different bus drivers, just depending upon different locations and different areas that we will be traveling towards. So again, you know, they are taking us from the hotels to the different cities and the different events and sites that we will see as we go throughout the tour. And then the local guides. They are the people that, like in Barcelona specifically, when we go on the bike tour and the walking tour, they are like the expert. Not that the tour director is not the expert, but they are the like expert of Park Güell in Barcelona, Spain. When I was there in 2018, that local guide had so much information to, you know, give to us and give to the students about that specific trip or that specific area. So those local guides are that expert individual that are on the ground. And again, just a really cool way for us to make connections with people that are living in these places that we get to visit and be a part of for 11 days. Okay, so these tips, I will need to collect $120 in cash, American cash, or by check from each traveler by our May 16th meeting. I do it by May 16th, so that way I can order the euros and the francs in order to be prepared and have that for all of these individuals. But like I said, $120 in cash, or if you want to write a check, those checks will be written out to me. I will let you know when I go cash that check. I will have your money safe and secure in one specific entity at my house, and before I go to the bank in order to purchase these monies, the foreign currencies for our tour director, bus drivers, and local guides. Okay, students can bring this to me to school if you wish to do that, or during our in-person meetings sooner rather than later. Hopefully, I'll be able to collect that as well. Okay. Wrapping up here, the special travel requests. These rarely happen, but just throwing this out there if any of this applies to you. If you are planning to arrive early before the beginning of the trip, which means not traveling over with the whole group. If you plan on staying later at the conclusion of the trip, whether if you're going backpacking on your own or you're meeting your family or whatever it might be. If you're booking your own flights, if you are planning to leave from a different airport or to Europe or come back from Europe because you're meeting family or whatever the reason might be, all of these different kind of what ifs, obviously I need to know, but also EF needs to know. Okay, so on your EF account, there is a manage your tour tab, and then there is a sub tab that says special travel. Okay, so you can click on that in order to fill out that special travel request online in order to make your early arrival, your late arrival, or late departure, whatever it might be, for any specific reason. Okay, and this needs to be done by January 18th, so I can plan, and also so EF can make those plans and preparations as well. Last little bit here, your tour donation page. This is what it looks like if you haven't clicked on it before. There is a link that's tied to this specific page on every single person's account. So that way you can send it out if you want via Facebook, Twitter, definitely I would say through email to different family members in order to help offset your balance. You know, we are getting towards the holiday season here. And even if you're on the automatic payment plan, that will just drop down your monthly payments too, that you will pay every single month leading up to the departure of the trip. Okay, so if you haven't thought about using this or you forgot about it, now is the time to access that account, get that link, and share it with your family. So that way they can help you make this experience happen for yourself. And the last slide here are just different ways and some reminders here to make sure that we all stay connected and that we are all in the same loop. We will meet in a few months on Sunday, February 7th, 2021 at 2:30, like I mentioned before at the beginning of the meeting. With the 2 trips that I have in 2021, I've moved the meetings to Sunday to kind of make it more feasible for myself, but also a little bit easier for maybe some people to join virtually as well if they need to and dial in when it comes to some of these meetings that we will have. I will let you guys know, obviously, as we move closer and into the new year, the location of the February meeting. But for now, these are all the ways that you're able to kind of stay connected with me and with us. Definitely, if you have not signed up for the remind messages, please do that, okay? For parents and for adult travelers, I feel like email is what is checked the most often. But for students, though, you probably don't check your email a lot, okay? So I definitely recommend anyone, really, any student traveler, adult traveler, or a parent or guardian of a student traveler to sign up for these remind messages. They're completely free. All you have to do is text at SMHSAPB21 to the number 81010. Okay, and again, that'll just let me be able to send out reminders as well. And then I also post on all of the social media about specific stuff for our tour, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you guys can check out those links on your own, as well as our website there at the end. All right. I appreciate you guys taking about an hour of your time here on Sunday afternoon to hear everything that I have to offer for you guys and how we're going to move forward with hope and with optimism and with promise to look at our 11-day tour of the Alps and the Mediterranean coast. And I just remind you again, I'm going to go here to the very beginning of the PowerPoint too, just about the sign-in sheet. If you came in late or you got bumped out for whatever reason, please, 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 please make sure you scan this QR. I will send it in the chat box again, and it'll also be in the email, but to make sure that you were here signed in so I know that, and also just some kind of quick questions there that are there at the end. All right. I appreciate you guys being here today, and we will talk very soon, and I'll be in contact via email and social media very soon.
Hey, hey, Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes,
Robin.
Rob, what's up?
Two questions about these additional excursions, the Swiss fondue and flamenco evenings.
Yes.
Are those in addition to what we will be doing, or will they be in lieu of any portion of the tour?
So they're additional. Both of those are on the same day, which is, if individuals do both excursions, that could be a lot going on, and maybe you don't want to do both. I've been on trips before where there are two offered excursions, but there are one on both of those days. The Swiss Alps experience and the Barcelona by bike, those I included in everyone's itineraries in the tour. But specifically for the fondue and the flamenco, that will be kind of some downtime for other travelers that choose to not do that. They could do shopping, they could go have a coffee somewhere, they could get some souvenirs, stuff like that, in lieu of looking or experiencing some of those other excursions.
Okay, so if we do enroll in those two, we're not missing anything else because everybody else will just have their own time.
Yep, and also that's the beauty about these trips too, because everyone kind of has a different experience. If you are someone that wants to make sure you get all those souvenirs, or just kind of that easy and relaxing downtime to kind of sit and people watch, which I honestly love to do, kind of looking at that to just take in something different. And obviously our tour director, whoever it might be, in the areas that we'll be at, they will be able to kind of point us, hey, like, if you're not doing this excursion, like, go check out this cafe, or go check out this mall, or this souvenir shop, or there's this really cool like art gallery or art area that you might be interested in whatever area we might be in Barcelona or Switzerland.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with that since we didn't take the additional excursion last year for Greece. So
yeah,
we had the downtime then.
Exactly. I think you guys enjoyed that too. And it's really just kind of everyone's personal opinion and their own idea as to what they would want specifically for that, just to kind of see a jam-packed day, because all of our days are going to be kind of jam-packed as it is anyway. But for that last last day or day 4, if you want to take it a little easy for an hour, hour and a half, you have that opportunity to do so too.
Okay, and is it possible to sign up for both of those excursions?
Yep, yep. I don't have the prices in front of me. I forget the totals for both, the
Okay,
cost for both of those. But in my email, you probably know EF's number or can access EF's number too. But I'll just send that out so that people can go to that if they want to just call and add those excursions.
answers my questions for now.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you being here, Robin.
Thank you.
Hi, Ryan. It's
Hi,
Nicole
how are you?
Meskey. Good. Nate Meskey's mom. I didn't see a QR code. I was just looking to see where I needed to scan.
I sent it in the chat too at the very beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Let me share my screen with you real quick with everyone so they can see that too.